So in its present form, without any change, I don't think it's possible to pass the Senate bill in the House.
Democrats aren't listening to the people. This bill is dead.
Obviously, Tuesday resulted in new political circumstances.
There have got to be some basic things here that we can all agree on.
The fact that there seems to be no transparency, and the backroom deals, people are outraged by that.
Well, the election of Scott Brown in Massachusetts has essentially pushed the reset button here in Washington. It is a completely different story after Tuesday night. What about that and how it will affect legislation moving forward? Let's bring in our panel. Fred Barnes, executive editor of the Weekly Standard. Mara Liasson, national political correspondent of National Public Radio, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Mara, first to you about, well, what has happened since Tuesday?
Well, a lot has happened since Tuesday. Obviously, healthcare was about to pass. Everybody here at this table in this town felt that way. No longer. And I think what happened is really a stunning indictment more than anything else of the Democratic majority. The fact that with 60 votes in the Senate, they could not, in one solid year after their president got elected, pass his signature domestic priority. I mean, that is stunning. I can't think of a Republican majority that would have failed to do that. So I think it's a real indictment of them, the fact that they couldn't get it done by now, and now they've lost the 60 votes that they need to pass it. The president clearly signaled that he was willing to retreat to a kind of health insurance reform package. I don't know if the Republicans are in any mood to give the president anything, but that clearly, you know, if you go to that, and the interesting thing about that, if you go down to these health insurance reforms, you might lose all of your industry buy-in. Don't forget, the health insurance industry basically called a truce on this one, said they would agree to be regulated like utilities if they could get those 30 million new customers. They were willing to sacrifice margin for volume. That was the new business model that they had bought into. Well, health insurance reform regulates them but doesn't give them all the new customers. So I think you lose them, and that was the grand bargain that was made even before Barack Obama was elected. So that's
Fred, your assessment.
You know, scaling back Obamacare is a non-starter. Look, it is dead. It is dead in the House. It is dead in the Senate. I'm not sure it would have passed even before Brown. Nancy Pelosi was down to 218 votes, and some of the more moderate Democrats were crazy. But the whole thing is dead. Republicans aren't going to help out on this. The Republican position is get that off the table. We'll start anew. We can deal with all these things that people want, whether it's sick people with pre-existing conditions or all these things. But you're going to have to give some Republicans, you're going to have to give them some things. I mean, and one of the things they want tort reform. They want the competition produced by allowing people to buy health insurance across state lines and so on. But President Obama, and congressional Democrats, after writing these bills, completely shutting out Republicans, except on the Senate Finance Committee when they had some Republicans involved there. But except for that, now they want Republicans to come in and help them fine-tune this bill so it'll pass. That's just not going to happen.
Charles, in that interview with ABC, President Obama, we saw it in James Rosen's piece, he told George Stephanopoulos about the reaction to Scott Brown's election. We were just so busy getting stuff done, dealing with the immediate crises that were in front of us, that I think we lost some of that sense of speaking directly to the American people. Now, we did some research. President Obama gave 411 speeches, comments, and remarks, 52 of those specifically on health care. 158 interviews, 90 for TV, 11 radio, the rest in print. 42 news conferences, 23 town hall meetings. Hard to say that he wasn't speaking directly to the American people, right?
It's amazing that his explanation for all of this is that he was so occupied with helping the American people, working quietly and late nights in the White House, that he was overly reticent. The man was ubiquitous. The man was everywhere. The man hovered like Big Brother. Every night you turned him on. He gave 29 speeches on health care, and at the end, every time he gave a speech, the numbers were declining. Look, it is not that Democrats want to think it was a question of the message. They want to believe it was a matter of tactics. They want to say he contracted out, it ended up all in Congress, he should have directed out of the White House. All that is cosmetic. The problem is the substance. He had one issue he wanted above all. He had cap and trade, which also didn't succeed. But there The signature issue was health care. The bills that were produced were monstrosity. At the beginning, it was a contradiction in terms. He says, I'm going to expand the coverage, include everybody who's uninsured, and cut costs. A child would know that's impossible. It was doomed because of the internal contradictions. And the problem is that in the end, it was all substance. The reason that it failed in Massachusetts, of all places, again, it wasn't a cosmetic issue. It was a rejection of the substance, and then in the end, it was a disgust over the process and all the deals.
Mara, what about this turn to populism, really focusing on the banks, and that's trying to focus the anger, he says, that he sees in this past
I think there's going to have to be more ways that the White House is going to have to get in touch with what voters are feeling. But this is a start. I mean, voters are angry at Wall Street. That kind of unites the left and the right and independents. They're angry about the big bonuses. I think that the ideas that he's talking about in terms of resurrecting some kind of firewall for the banks makes sense, and I don't think that's going to be a problem for him.
He needs independents. You know, independents have rejected him now overwhelmingly in the New Jersey and Virginia governor's races and in on Tuesday in Massachusetts. You don't get them with populism. They're not the folks that are going to go for that. They never have, and so I think he's on a wrong track. Look, you have to realize that President Obama is a weaker president than he was before the election on Tuesday. You can't go around for the third time and campaign for somebody who loses, and polls show that you might have actually marginally hurt that candidate, as polls showed in Martha Coakley's case. And the second thing is, when you're the centerpiece of your domestic policy is rejected, not just in polls, which has been going on for months, but by voters in one of the most liberal states in the country that he won by 26 points in 2008. When it's rejected, he's weaker. He will not be taken as seriously by Democrats, who won't regard him in the same way, and Republicans as well.
The ultimate cause of the debacle in Massachusetts and of his decline, Obama's decline, is that he misread his mandate. This is a center-right country, and he tried the governing left. His only hope of success is to tack to the center, the way that Clinton did. The problem is that he's much more ideological, and he may not have the capacity or the will, you know, to end up back in the center.
Because, Mara, the left is saying he needs to go further left.
Yes, you know, center left. It depends on what you mean by tacking to the center. I mean, and populism doesn't mean necessarily left-wing populism either. I think that anger at Wall Street unites every part of the political spectrum. I mean, do Republicans really want to defend Wall Street bonuses right now? No.
Look, I don't think people want to hear some angry populist attacks by
populist. He's just saying, you know, I think he's expressing the anger of the people at the bailouts and the fact that Wall Street seems to have gotten away scot-free.
You abandon health care and you abandon cap and trade as a starter.
Okay. Some changes, big changes coming in how political campaigns are funded. We will discuss today's big Supreme Court ruling and what it means for the midterms in 3 minutes.